Congratulations.
And with that, Selinsgrove welcomed its newest and youngest council member. 18-year-old Chris Kalsick was halfway through his senior year at Selinsgrove Area High School when he decided to take a shot at a seat on Borough Council and won.
I was already involved with the Snyder County Democrats Committee, and I had met great people there, and I had worked on campaigns in the past, and I was like, I think this is something I can do to give back to the community.
Borough Council President Marvin Rodnitsky says having a young member on council brings a breath of fresh air.
It's helpful to have those youthful people on and give their view of things that may be a little different from someone with as much gray hair as I have.
As a new council member, Chris would like to see some more community-based initiatives formed that bring people together, especially the area's youth. That's not surprising considering what he does for a living. Since 2016, Chris has worked part-time at the Regional Engagement Center, which provides a variety of educational, recreational, and charitable activities for the community. Chris has overseen the cafeteria that provides children with food when they come in after school.
We hired him on immediately after graduation. He ran the whole summer camp kitchen program here for us. He hired these guys, did all their training, and really takes a lot of pride in, the appearance of the cafe.
Now Chris is tackling a first year of college, a full-time job, and being a public official. But he's not worried.
I was involved in so many programs in high school. I was president of National Honor Society. I was in marching band. I was in concert band. I still worked all through high school. I worked for the American Lung Association. And I feel like this is actually less on my plate right now.
Federal Courthouse in Scranton. Peggy.
Well, Scott, the U.S. Attorney's Office held a news conference here this afternoon where it discussed its investigation into Bill Courtright. After the news conference, the U.S. Attorney then called into a local radio talk show where he talked about where the investigation stands now.
Citizens of Scranton are really outraged that this happened to them again. Sort of like, here we go again with the corruption.
Callers continued their outcry here at WILK Studios over the abrupt downfall of former Scranton Mayor Bill Courtright. Courtright was in federal court in Williamsport where he admitted taking money from businesses hoping to do work with the city. Those who didn't pay didn't get the job. One of the first callers to the talk radio show, the man who brought the corruption charges against Courtright, U.S. Attorney David Freed.
We're going to continue to pursue this investigation as far as it takes. The agents who are working on this case were working on this case nonstop.
Freed's call came after his office held a news conference at the federal courthouse in Scranton where Freed said Courtright conspired with unnamed individuals to extort money.
When the U.S. Attorney, mentioned unindicted co-conspirators, that leads me to believe that there's some people out there right now squirming.
Courtright is a lifelong resident of Scranton, living here in the city's west side. People here say what he has done both angers and hurts them.
I'm shocked. I never saw this coming either. I knew him, his wife, his family, his mother, his father, very nice people.
Paul Catalano owns Catalana, a popular Italian deli in West Scranton. Both he and his customers say Courtright is now reaping what he sowed.
Under the RICO Act, mafia were arrested for doing the same thing, extorting money from businesses.
And I hope it sends a warning signal to everybody else who's seeking office in the future and everybody else who's voting for those people seeking office.
Courtright faces a maximum penalty of 35 years in prison plus a $750,000 fine. He is scheduled to be sentenced in November. Peggy Lee, Newswatch 16, reporting live here in Scranton.
An ongoing fight between two rival groups in Wilkes-Barre has led to this. Police investigating the fourth report of shots fired in 4 days. Officers say all of these incidents are connected.
Obviously there's a danger because they're firing guns in open areas where people are around and cars are driving, so obviously there is a danger.
Police say it started on Saturday night when someone was shot on Bowman Street. Then on Monday, police say someone fired into a home on Lockhart Street. No one was hurt. Yesterday, officers say the person in this SUV drove it to police headquarters after being shot at. Then 4 hours later, shots were fired into a home on Dagobert Street. No one was hurt in either of yesterday's incidents.
People who live around here say this used to be a quiet and safe neighborhood, but they don't feel that way anymore.
If you have any information that might help, you're asked to call officers in Wilkes-Barre. Carolyn Blackburn, Newswatch 16, Wilkes-Barre.
Well, Scott, we first met Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey III when he flew into the airport Saturday night. Since then, he spent his time talking to students and other veterans about his historic experience. As Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey III returned to where he grew up, the honor is much deserved for the mountaintop native who played an important role in American history, as Harvey is one of the last remaining members of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Then we were just flying, that's all. We were just flying, and that was it, just doing our job. But little did we know that we would be a part of history.
Harvey was a part of the first all-African-American squadron and the first African-American to fly a combat mission over Korea. But the recognition to his unit would take decades to be acknowledged.
The Army Air Corps, when the group came back from overseas, they put a classification of top secret on the Tuskegee Airmen. It was on for 50 years, came off in '95. The program was too successful. If we weren't white, we didn't have any brains.
Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey was already making accomplishments even before he joined the military. When he graduated from the then Fairview High School in 1942, he was president and valedictorian of his class.
Perfection is what we were required to have.
Harvey took time to visit his childhood community, speaking to students at Crestwood High School here in Mountaintop, where he continued to share his story, a story of success that almost wasn't told.
We were the best at escorting overseas. We were the best, but we weren't supposed to be. It's a good feeling, knowing we were the best.
And before James Harvey plans to fly back to his home in Colorado on Wednesday, he is planning to have dinner with veterans at the American Legion in Mountaintop tomorrow night. Peggy Lee, Newswatch 16, reporting live here in Luzerne County. Grief-stricken residents gathered at this apartment building on North Maple Street, hoping to salvage whatever belongings that managed to survive the blaze that tore through their homes. Raymond Deckard and Cassandra White say they've lost just about everything they owned, including all the clothes for their 1.5-year-old daughter and 11-month-old son.
A lot of the stuff we can't even save because of where the fire was fully involved was mostly all our kids' stuff. So we can't even, mostly all our clothes and all of our kids' clothes is all gone.
So like, with all the clothes, like it's mostly the stuff that we got for them, for what my mom got for them, and she's passed away, so it's like really hard.
The Mount Carmel fire chief says one person had to be rescued from a second floor, but all inside got out unharmed. Now these residents are out of a home.
It was horrible going in there and seeing my home that was my home, you know, and it was heartbreaking seeing it yesterday, you know, go up in smoke, everything that I've worked so hard for.
The tenants we spoke with said they are being helped by Red Cross, and there is a GoFundMe page started for the victims. However, they say they are essentially starting from the ground up. Still, if there's one silver lining in this, Deckard says their daughter's cat Nala that was left behind was waiting when they returned.
She was in there all night. Our door was still open from the fire yesterday, and she walked to the door, and I just dove in to grab her.
Live at PennDOT headquarters tonight in Dunmore. Peggy?
Well, Charlotte, PennDOT looked at 19 roundabouts, including the one near the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport, and found that overall crashes were down by 34%. Here in Dallas, drivers navigate around the roundabout as rush hour traffic builds up. The circular intersection seems to be a thing people love to hate, but those living here say it's growing on them.
I think it's okay now. I was against it at first, but it seems to work out pretty well.
Best thing that ever hit Dallas. It really works fine. It really does.
However, the 3 roundabouts near the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport aren't quite so well liked.
I heard that's a nightmare, that there's an accident every day from the girl I work with.
Like them or hate them, PennDOT says you can thank them for keeping you safer on your commute. PennDOT says it looked at 19 roundabouts, including the one by the airport, by reviewing police reports on crashes between 2000 and 2018, and the amount of deadly crashes are down. Serious injuries in crashes fell by 90%, and overall, crashes in general dropped by 34%. PennDOT says the one thing that did increase was the number of minor accidents, such as fender benders. Those types of accidents went up by 10%. PennDOT says that's due to people not staying in their lanes or not merging properly.
It's just everybody's going from all different directions,
and nobody's yielding. They're just like going, and it's like crazy. I don't like it.
Mike and Regina Enrico from Long Island are staying at the hotel near the airport. That was their first time dealing with that triple roundabout.
And the last one coming up to here, there's I think 4 or 5 exits going off of it. So it's a little bit confusing, yeah.
And in addition to those 19 roundabouts, PennDOT says there are 29 roundabouts on state roads and another 40 in development. Peggy Lee, Newswatch 16, reporting live outside PennDOT headquarters here in Lackawanna County.